Anytime you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 96 Atlanta area O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Blog Talk Radio.
We are the UR Tennis Network. Our mission is to be the voice of tennis. We enlist a team of passionate enthusiasts to promote our sport. We strive to bring interesting perspectives on the many spins of tennis. Our goal is to provide the learners of our sport with current news and information from many angles. We seek active participation from communities interested in tennis, but tennis is not interested in them. We are expanding our outreach. Tennis is a true lifetime sport that needs to be talked about, and the UR Tennis Network pledges to pursue this idea relentlessly.
Good morning and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and today we are going to be talking about how to choose the right coach for your junior player, and who better to guide us in this conversation than a woman who has been through this 3 times now while she's on her second and third child, but has parented 3 young women to the professional ranks in the tennis world and has done an amazing job with each of them. And she has so much information to share with us. And, of course, I'm talking about Gayal Pitts Black, who is mom to Nicole Pitts and also to Tornado and Hurricane Black. So you guys, I know, have heard of her daughters, and if you've been listening to my show, you maybe tuned in when Gail was on the show a couple months ago with her daughter Nicole, and they shared with us Nicole's experience coming up through the juniors, turning pro, and now being in medical school and on her way to becoming a medical doctor and working in research specifically with tennis athletes. So pretty awesome stuff, and I'm really, really looking forward to hearing what Gail has to say about the best way to go about choosing a coach for our child and knowing when to make a change in our child's coaching situation, because we all will face that at some point, and she's got some great insights to share. Before I bring Gail on the line, though, one quick thing. I just want to let you know there is construction going on outside my office today, so I apologize in advance for any noise you may hear. And with that, I'm going to go to a quick commercial, and when we come back, Gayal Pitts Black.
Warning. Orthopedic surgeons are seeing an increase in overuse injuries when young athletes perform the same repetitive stressful motions over and over. Pitching, tennis, weight training, even long swimming workouts can cause overuse trauma that may require surgery. If your kids play and train hard, visit orthoinfo.org or stopsportsinjuries.org. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to the Parenting Aces radio show. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and am so excited to have with us again today Gayal Pitts Black. Gail, thank you so much for being on the show again. I just appreciate you so much taking time out of your crazy busy schedule.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Anything we can do to help other parents learn, I've learned the hard way.
Well, I think a lot of us have, and I think that's why Parenting Aces is gaining some traction out there. I think parents are hungry to hear from those of us who have kind of been through the process before, and you certainly have been through the process or still in the process, but on the professional side, and have so much insight to share with us, as I've learned from yours and my private conversations. I mean, you've kind of been through all the things that there are to go through in this tennis journey.
Oh, thank you. It's not easy.
For sure. Well, let's start out with just a really broad-reaching question, which is, what should a parent look for in a coach when their child is just starting out in tennis?
Well, it totally depends what your goals are. Do you want your player just to have fun? Then you can go out and do some quick start tennis. Or do you want your child to go to a top college and try and go pro? You always shoot for the stars, and if your goals are to be a top pro, the least you'll get out of it is a full ride to a top Division I college. So it never hurts to go all the way and have your dreams high, but finding a coach will totally kind of depend on what the parents' goals are. And I have to say parents' goals because it's not a child's goal at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Well, and that's an interesting point because we hear a lot of people say, that we have to let the player drive the process. And so you're right. At 3, 4, 5, how does a child know what they want or what their goal is? And for a lot of families, that's the age at which the child is first being exposed to the sport.
Well, I disagree with a lot of people. My philosophy is, and, it's just like when you go buy a book, you're getting one person's opinion. So you just kind of have to take what you can get out of it and what you want to learn from it. But I believe you have to push the child at a young age. If that's really what you've decided you want them to do, then they'll let you know from their attitude if they don't want to be on the court. If they really don't want to do it and they don't want to run and they don't want to do fitness, tennis is all of that, and you've got them in the wrong sport. Then you need to maybe take up some dance or music lessons or, but give them, if you really want them to be a tennis player, give them a chance, but you have to push them and you have to get them fit and get them to all their lessons on time and have the right coach. And it's up to you to no child 4 and 5 years old will push themselves. They might go out and love it and do really well, but it's the parent that kind of has to push them from behind and get them in what you want them to be in, and then see if they really like it and go from there.
And so, that's an interesting point. How do you make that decision that, my child is miserable out there on the tennis court? Is this really a reflection of the fact that my child hates tennis, or do I just have them with the wrong coach?
No, you can have them with the wrong coach. If your child's not a person that likes to do fitness and likes to do a lot of running, you do have them in the wrong sport because it's everything to stay fit. And, you're going to be totally active, so they are in the wrong sport. But if the child's just unhappy, first, you just don't give up. You've got to try another coach. You probably have a wrong coach that doesn't work well with young children. It takes a lot of patience to work with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, up to 7 or 8-year-old. It's totally a different coach than somebody that works with adults.
And so what specifically should parents be asking when they're looking for coaches for that age child?
Well, first of all, and I know this will bring up controversy, but I don't believe in going and asking if they have a PTR or if they have a USPTA. It's finding a coach that has developed someone at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever age you start your child. Of course, you need to start girls a couple years younger than a boy, but you need to go find a coach that you feel has a lot of patience, because the chemistry, no matter what age, is so important between the coach. And then you've got to go out and find who's developed a little girl that's winning at 8, 9, and 10 years old at 12 and unders. And there's plenty out there. And they've developed them because they know how to develop a young child, and that is so important, whether it's a girl or boy, to find a young child development coach. There's many great coaches you hear of out there. I won't mention any names today much, but you have to decide, okay, you hear this coach has been great with all these players. Yes, but they're pro players. That coach did not develop that player. Someone else developed that player, and they came to that coach, and that coach is advertising off that name that somebody else developed when they were younger. Like Richard Williams, now he developed his girls from very young all the way through teenagers. I've developed my daughters with the help of other coaches since they were 1.5 years old, and all of a sudden they become teenagers, 14 and 15, and they tell me, Mom, we've had enough of you, and I totally understand. So now I step back and I find coaches that can take them to the next level, but that the coach understands it's my input, and I can tell the coach, this is what I want you to tell them on the side, and they'll go tell them, and the child, my daughters, think it comes from them, and it's really coming from me. So now I need a coach that I can work with together, but that's not the same coach that I would have used at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
You made an interesting statement a minute ago. You said to look at coaches who are developing players who are winning in the 12s at young ages, 7, 8, 9. But we hear so much that it's not about winning in those early years, that you have to look at the big picture, you have to look at this as a journey. It seems to me maybe you have a different take on that.
Well, that's true, but nowadays you've got to start your children younger and younger. Just like over in China, they take them away from the home at 2 and 3 years old and put them in gymnastic camps, and those are their top gymnasts in the Olympics. And if you look at most of your top players, Justine Henin, Kim Clijsters, they've all played since they were little, tiny kids. And most of your top players have been playing and were winning at a very young age. Yes, you will have kids that develop a little bit later and come and slip through the cracks at 15, 16, 17 years old. But the norm is if they're doing really, really well and they have the correct game, that's the whole key, because you can win at a young age by pushing the ball, or you can have a pro game at a young age and you will keep winning all the way through. So you've got to find a coach that wants to teach you to play like a little mini pro versus just a junior. A lot of coaches, okay, well, we're only going to teach you this. You're only 8 years old. We're only going to teach you this because you're 10 years old. And I believe in teaching the kids at a young age to play like a pro, and then you don't have to relearn it when they get older.
And so playing like a pro means their stroke development, their movement, their tactics and strategy, all of those things?
Well, most everything we teach at a very, very young age, to use their footwork, to use your legs, to get on the Basu ball so they learn to use their legs from their knee to their thigh, to bend their knees, to stay down, to finish the stroke. There's so many things that they teach the pros, and if you teach the children at a young age to do it properly and have the proper technique, then you don't have to teach them to learn it again at 12 or 13 when it starts getting very difficult when they start going through puberty.
All right, I'm going to ask you a politically charged question. Is the red, orange, green pathway the right way to do that? I believe in the foam ball tennis and the quick start tennis for young kids starting out, but I think it's up to the coaches because a parent wouldn't know. The coaches need to pull them out, like picking a weed out of the grass. You see a weed far away and you go over and pluck it out. You've got to pluck the top players out of the field so that that one flower that blooms, you've got to go take it out and put them in a different pathway than the average quick start tennis. To me, the foam ball tennis is for younger kids, and it keeps more kids. I think it's great for recreation tennis, but I also think if you have a top-notch coach, you're going to see who has the talent and the coordination to be able to move to the next level. So, in your opinion, waiting until they're 11 years old may not be the right move. They may be ready much sooner than that.
I think if a player is going to be a top player, most of them are ready much, much sooner. I think it's so sad now that they've changed this quick start program where now you can't play, at least in Florida, you can't play until the month of your 11th birthday or the week of your 11th birthday unless you go through this quick start program. And it's kind of sad because my girls were winning nationals at 10 years old. 12 and unders. And a little Coco Goff now, Corey Goff from Delray Beach, she's also won the national 12s at 10 years old. Of course, the girls win so much younger than a boy because they're more developed.
Mm-hmm.
But, if they were still in quick start, I think the 12s have really gotten watered down and doesn't have the talent it had before at the 12 nationals. Even watching this weekend, it just wasn't the same because so many of the kids stayed down in quick start, so they're not advancing like our kids used to advance at 9, 10, 11 years old. But again, I think it's a great way to start. It's a great way to find the talented kids. But then again, if you don't have a coach that can recognize top talent and athleticism, then they're not going to be able to pluck them out of the field and move them on to the next step.
So what are some concrete things that parents can do? Because I want parents to leave today's show really having some tools that they can use out there to make sure that they have their child in the correct coaching relationship, or maybe not the correct, but a correct coaching relationship. So, for the parent that didn't grow up in the sport, doesn't know anything about tennis, is really coming at this blind, we know, you and I know, and I would assume a lot of my listeners know too, there are some really good salesmen out there wearing Lacoste shorts and holding a Wilson tennis racket. So, selling themselves as coaches.
I don't want to offend the used car salesman, but I do call them the used car salesman that can sell a car that can't even run as a live running car.
Yeah.
But we have many, I would say most of the tennis coaches are that way in tennis, and we have that a lot in Florida because everywhere you go, they'll say, yes, I train Venus and Serena. And so you ask them questions. Oh, I was their hitter. And I'll know that they were their hitter and not their coach. And they'll like, no, I hit with them for 2 months or 3 months. I'm like, okay, you were their hitter and you're telling people you're their tennis coach, or you were their tennis coach? Their dad was their tennis coach. You were just a hitter for them.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful.
So how do parents separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak?
You have to find out who won or who is in, say, the quarterfinals on up in the national 12s each year, and then go back and do research and find out who'd you train with. I went to Serena's mother, Oracene, in Los Angeles when my oldest daughter was 8 years old. And I said, what do I need to do? This sounds really funny, but back then we didn't have computers 20 years ago. And so there was no way. You had to call information to get a phone number. And I said, Oracene, I can't find Macy. I keep looking under M-A-C-Y, like the department store. And she goes, no, Gail, it's M-A-C-C-I. And then, of course, she gave me his phone number, told me all about him and what I should do and to come back. And, a week later we were back here trying it out. And then I managed his academy for a couple of years, and my daughter had a full ride. And anyway, it went on from there. But you've got to do research and homework and find out, see if you can call the players. And if that's where you want to go, if you want to go all the way and try and become pro, you've got to start at a young age. So most of the top coaches are around the world or certain places, and you hear about them from these top girls, or you can go to the nationals and ask the girls in the quarterfinals on who's your coach, and usually the coaches are there, and talk to that coach and see exactly, where they're coming from.
Well, it sounds like that's an awful lot of work.
Well, if you want your player to be a champion, it is a lot of work. To this day, I have a 29-year-old, 17 and 14-year-old, and I've turned the coaching over to the youngest one now to different coaches, but I'm still there all day and I'm still on top of everything, and it's still a full-time job. And I'm the one that did their drills since they were 1.5 years old, and by the time they were 5, they were drilling 5-6 hours a day and running around the lake if they didn't get on the ball. So I would feed them 3 balls out wide, and if they didn't even touch the racket on the ball, they had to run around the lake. So, then if they're going to make it or not make it, because they either, have the drive to get to those 3 balls, or they don't care if they run around the lake.
Okay, so So we know what to look for at the beginning. And so once the child has developed past the foam balls, they've shown some promise and some athletic ability, and let's say you got lucky and you found that beginning coach who is a real straight shooter and says to you, you know what, your child is progressing really quickly and has really gone beyond where I can help him or her. I would suggest you look for another coach. And let me say, there are coaches out there who will do that. There are straight shooters out there. So let's say you got lucky and your coach says that to you. Now what do you do?
Well, you have to ask them if they have any suggestions, and then you also have to go around. If you can take a couple weeks in the summer or winter and come down to Florida and go around to the top different academies and just watch and see what they're doing. And if you go to Rick Macy's, go see who he's coaching and how they're doing and where they're at. And it doesn't matter what coach, you're going to outgrow a coach at a certain level. And when you've outgrown the coach when your child is not getting better or they're getting bored. And most people say if you go 4 weeks, even in fitness, if you go 4 weeks and your child's not progressing, if you're on top of the game and on top of your child's tennis, you will make a change so that the child keeps progressing forward, because you do outgrow coaches and fitness coaches.
How important is the communication between the coach and the parent?
Oh, I believe 100%. I believe it's a team, and if the parent can't be involved with the player and the coach as a 3-way or 4-way team, if 2 parents are involved, you can't do it. And if you have a coach that doesn't want you involved, get out, go somewhere else, because it's a long-term commitment. And the parent has to be involved. Unless you have millions of dollars and you can just drop your kid off and expect them to get everything the coach is going to give them and come back and pick them up late at night, it's not going to work. You have to, even if you have a full-time job, you've got to find a way on your day off or lunchtime, leave work early. You've got to go by the tennis and see what's going on yourself. You can't just take the word of the coach or the player. How do you know your child's being treated right? I mean, you have to go by and make sure they're not just hitting with, anybody's little child that pays a lot of money. You've got to go make sure your child's being taken care of, and the only way you'll know is to be on top of it and go by and not just leave them at a babysitting service.
Interesting. Well, there are a lot of coaches, because you and I both hang out in these forums on Facebook. I see you on there too. And there are a lot of coaches that really don't want us parents anywhere around the court, right? I mean, read the same stuff I read.
Yes, I don't think you should be there. I mean, if a parent, I coach also, but I've coached for 26 years, and I've never not allowed a parent on my court, ever. I encourage them to film, to video, to pick up balls so they get the full hour a lesson on any coach. And the coach isn't willing for you to be on the court, especially during a private lesson. How are you going to learn to work with them? Because it's not just a coach. You might go to the coach an hour a day for a private or 2 or 3 days a week. The parent has to do the rest of the work if you want them to be a champion. You need to take them out in the evenings and on the weekends and feed them balls. How do you know what the coach is working on if they won't allow you on the court? Now, some academies won't allow you anywhere on the court. If you go, an example, I used to manage his academy to Rick Macy, he knows it takes a parent to make the player besides himself doing the private lessons. So he encourages the parent can even be on the court during the drills. While the coach is feeding and doing drills, you can still interact with your child behind your child, even if there's 2, 3, 4 kids on the court, because Rick understands that's what it takes to make a champion. Is a parent has to be involved, and the parent has to do additional feeding and drills and match play off the court when they're not at the tennis academy. So you need a coach like that if you want to develop a champion. To me, if the parent doesn't want you around, the coach doesn't want the parent around, there's something wrong. They don't want you to see something going on. I would never, ever take my kids. Somebody even 6 months ago said, I have to ask all parents now not to come on the court. And I looked and I said, excuse me? I am my daughter's coach, and no one will ask me to get off the court. We will not be back. Thank you, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. And he walks over, well, it was just another parent. I said, that's fine. But I coach. I'm bringing my daughter to you because she needs something different as a teenager besides myself. She's had me since she could walk, and now she would like to play with some different kids and have different input. But that's okay. If I can't be out here seeing what's going on and intermixing, then I won't be bringing her back. And, boy, he changed his tune real quick because he wanted her to stay.
Sure. Well, and there's a fine line, don't you agree, where, we as the parent have to trust the coach that they're doing the things with our child that they feel will help our child develop, but also we need to be part of that communication process because there are very few people that can afford to pay a coach to take their child to every single tournament, right? Most of the time it's the parent that's there.
Most parents can't. Right. Most parents cannot. You've got to do it all on your own. But you do need that top great coach to give them the technique and take them the motivation and take them to the next level. So you've got to find that great coach, but you still have to be the one that's running everything from the house. And a lot of these coaches have a big head and they want to be running everything. And I know there's some trouble parents out there and they give them trouble, but, maybe a regular clinic at a park, you wouldn't want parents on the court, which is fine. But if I'm developing your little 5, 6, 7-year-old, I want you out there to see what's going on. I want you to hear the child talk and answer when I ask them something. I want you to see what we're doing so you can encourage it at home and on the weekends. Because it's just like music lessons. Say you take piano lessons from a teacher. And if I come to you for a piano lesson and I come back next week for the same piano lesson, you can't move on and give me the next songs because I never practiced. And you have to do your homework and practice between private tennis lessons so the coach can move on to the next lesson.
That makes total sense. Well, I would venture to say that parents like you and me on a much different level would be considered problem parents by a lot of coaches, right? I'm sure you've heard that.
Absolutely. But you know what? The problem parents are the ones, most of them, that make the children the great players. And I'm sorry to say, and I'm one of them, is it takes a little bit of craziness, like Richard Williams, like myself, to make 3 champions. It takes a little bit of craziness, and I am crazy, but that's what it takes to get my daughters where they needed to go.
One of the conversations you and I have had a couple times now is that parents get into this tennis thing, and they really, and I shouldn't say they, I'm going to put me in that group too, that we really don't understand what it takes from our side, the parent side, to even, I forget becoming a top professional, to even get them to the point, on the men's side I will say more than the women's, that they're in contention for a college scholarship.
Well, you still have to treat them the same way. You still have to train them the same way and push them as hard as they can go. I'm sure your son, and I know earlier on his goals when he was going to some of the ITFs and stuff, and when he went to in Texas, that, your goals kind of writing were about him, going to the next level, playing ITFs and going on to the Pro Tour, but he didn't have the right coaching to get to the level where he was trying to go, which was kind of sad because you didn't know better, and you probably left him with a coach for many months too long or many years too long. And I don't know who he worked with, and it doesn't matter, but it's just that he was in the wrong place when he did get the correct coaching when you took him out west. He became so much better so fast because he had the correct coaching that he needed years ago that wasn't available where you live.
Right. And you're right, I didn't know better. And that's the pitfall that I'm trying to help my listeners avoid. Don't spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars when your child isn't improving. And so really that's the goal of today's show is to help parents recognize when to make that change. So that's a really good segue. When do you know that it's time for a new coach? How do you know?
Well, they're not winning, they're not progressing. If you have a coach that doesn't have the chemistry with your child, they don't want to go back to tennis, or they drag their feet to get there. You want to see them progressing, and you'll see them progress. If you're involved in their tennis, you'll totally see them progress. Now, to go the other way as far as money, if somebody only has $100 a week, find a top technical coach. Say you have $150 a week. Find the best, and you've got time to work with your child, find the best coach you can find for an hour, or do 2 half hours. Do Monday and Thursday, and do 2 half hours with that coach. I guarantee when I get top 5 and 6-year-olds come to me and they're really, really talented, I will take them a half hour twice a week, work with them if that's all the parents have, teach them what to buy, what equipment to buy, what to do for fitness, what to do for tennis, and tell the parents, go work on this. Come back to me twice a week. If that's all you can afford, that's fine. You can make your child at a young age, by 8, 9 years old, be a great player depending how many hours you want to put on the court developing your own child. And don't ever say, the parents, don't ever say, well, I don't know what to do. It's so easy. If you get a top coach willing to help you, it's not that hard. And if you get a great player by 9 or 10 years old, you're going to get a scholarship to play in someone's academy at a young age. And then you don't have to worry about it. But it all comes down to the hours. If you've got the money, then you can pay somebody to go to their academy full time, or a top coach 5 or 10 hours a week. But if you don't, take the little bit of money, get some great coaching. I have people come to me all the time from Canada, from Europe, and they'll come for a week or 2 weeks and get a lot of technical training, learn what to do, and they go back and they film it and they send me videos of what their child's doing now, and they find coaches in the city or the country they live in that help develop them where they want to go. And they come back every year, every 6 months, and some more if they're closer by, and say, this is what we're doing now, because I kind of do a lot more consulting now than coaching. And where are we at? What do we need to do now? And you just tell them and you help them. But a child can go so far by the parents getting involved and feeding the balls. And you don't even have to feed them. You can drop balls if you do it properly. But there's a technique in that, because you still have to make sure they're moving forward and they're going towards the net and they're hitting out in front of them and not behind them. So the parents can take the child as far as they want to go if they've got the time to do it without having a lot of money for a full-time coach.
Okay, so what about the parent that doesn't have the time and money? What do they do? Are they locked out of high-level tennis? Pretty much, but I don't know how anyone can say, I don't have the time. I used to run a mini market out in California, and I would make sure I got off work by 5 o'clock, and I took my oldest daughter out from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock every single day and night, and I had a ball machine, and I did the drills behind her, and pretty soon I had 3 and 4 kids coming out to do the drills with her because they thought it was so exciting every day, to go so many hours. And we would bring dinner to the courts right there and have dinner on the table, and the kids would take turns eating while the other ones were hitting, and we just kind of made it fun. And that's how I really got so much into it, because I absolutely love these kids that, couldn't afford to go to camp all week and all day, and they would come out and just join us, and it just, it just does
wonders to your mind to show you that, oh, these kids are really, really enjoying it. They weren't in the right environment to make them thrive.
Mhm. But not every parent is willing to do that. So, I mean, let's be realistic, and you know this. I mean, you talk to enough parents, and you've been around the game long enough. I wouldn't be able to do the things that you did. I had other children that didn't play tennis, so who needed my attention. So, what's a parent in that situation supposed to do?
Well, to take them to a top level, you almost have to have some money then if you're not willing to do it yourself, because you've got to pay somebody, and anybody that's developed any players are going to keep raising their rates. And, people say, oh, some of these top coaches are $250, $300, $400 an hour. Well, they're not trying to be greedy. They're that price because they're already working 12 hours a day. And if they weren't that high, they would have 24 hours a day of business lined up. So it's supply and demand. When there's a big demand and there's not the supply, the rates go up. And so when coaches develop top players, their rates start going up, and that's just the way it is. You might find a coach that's really, really cheap, but chances are he's never developed anybody. And you're just going to end up at a regular college, maybe Division II, Division III, or a low-level 1 because you didn't have either the financial or you didn't have time to get out on the court, or you just didn't know what to do to take them to the level they needed to go at.
Right.
Tennis is a very, very go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, tennis is a very expensive sport, and it's not cheap. The sad thing now is that I see is, we can have this new tennis center, which I'm so excited about. They're going to have all these, pools and physical therapy and plenty of courts and all surfaces, and that's just fabulous. But the problem is now a lot of the top players even have full use of the United States Tennis Facility in Boca Raton, or even full scholarships at academies, which is great. But where do the parents get the money to get them to the tournaments to get their rankings? That's the problem. If you don't find a private sponsor to get you to those tournaments, all the training doesn't matter, because you have to be able to go get the points to get your ranking, to get a ranking up high enough to start making money on the Pro Tour.
Right.
Or even to get in a top college, you've got to go to tournaments, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw, 3-4 years ago with Taylor Townsend, that exact situation, right? USTA decided not to fund her trip to the U.S. Open, and her mom was scrambling to try to figure out how to get her up there, and thankfully found a way to get her there, because, she's one of our star players in this country, and it's always nice to have the top players at the big tournaments. But this is a real problem, and it's not just at the junior level. The problem extends all the way up to the top of the game.
Oh, yes, but at the top of the game, tennis is very political, but when you get to the top of the game, you've got the funds, because if you're top 100, say 150 for a boy, you're making enough money that you don't need the extra sponsors, and you can do it yourself. You don't have to worry, but it's even getting there to get to all the top tournaments, to get a top ranking, to get in a top Division I school takes a lot of money. Just for the traveling, let alone, say you do all your own coaching, or you're at USTA full time, you still need the money to get to the tournaments with your same team you had to get you there to win, to get to the top college or to the pro level.
Right. How much input should the player, him or herself, have in choosing the coach?
They have to have a lot. If there's not chemistry, it just doesn't work. I've seen so many places, academies everywhere, this is your coach. And if you go in and say, I'm sorry, it's just not working out, the coach and my child don't get along, it's not there. And they say, well, too bad, that's the way it is. That brings up another point. Do not pay these academies for a whole year in advance, and they'll tell you, we'll save you 10 or 20%. Do not do it. Pay your coaches. I wouldn't even pay by the month. unless the deal's so big you can't, but not over a month at the most. The best bet, if you can pay every week, because your child's going to be taken care of, because they want you to come back, they want the money every week. If you pay ahead of time for 6 months or a year, they already got your money. Then you want to leave, they say, leave. We already got your money. They don't care. I mean, most places don't care. So if you can pay the shortest term you can pay for your child's tennis, then you're on top of it. You're in control, because you can go somewhere else next week and the next week and the next week where you want to go and where your child is happy. And your child could be perfectly happy at academy and they switch a coach and they're miserable. Then why would you want to stay if they're not going to change the coach? If they tell you this is the coach you're stuck with, you don't want to be there. Your child's not going to, climb the ladder fast when there was somebody they don't want to be with. So yes, at a very young age, a child doesn't know a lot what they need to know about the game, but they do know enough to tell you the coach was, I wouldn't say they could come and say he's mean, because I work mainly with little kids like 8 and under, and I've got to be tough on them to see, where they're going to go or if they can make it. So there's a difference in being tough and making champions and just being outright mean. So the child's got to give a little of their input, and again, the parents got to go by and see what's going on during the lesson.
Well, there's all this talk about the fact that our American kids are too soft and that we parents are too soft, and that's why we don't have more players at the top of the game. What's your input on that? What's your take on that?
I think there's plenty of players out there. Jay Berger's done a fabulous job with a group of boys coming up right now, a whole group of them. They've all competed against each other, but they've also traveled all over the world and gone to South America and Spain, and they've done so many things together, all those boys, and they've all pushed each other as a big group. And so, when your friends are all working hard on the tennis court, you want to go out and work hard, if that's your group of friends and you're homeschooling. If you're at a regular school and you're going to all the parties and dances, then, yes, the parents are going to be soft. They have to make a choice. Do you want your child to be more down the road of being a top tennis player and going to a great college and either going pro or becoming a doctor or lawyer, or do you want them just to go have fun at tennis and have fun at school? And that's, a totally different pathway than someone else would take.
So we've talked about, the things to look for in terms of what players has a coach developed and how well, do they interact with the child and with the parent. What are some other things that we parents should expect to get from a coach? And I'm talking about, scheduling, college recruiting, choosing equipment, off-court training, mental training, all those things. Should we expect that from one coach, or where do we draw the line between what is our job as the parent and what is the coach's role?
No, you're paying the coach unless they're there full time for drills and group play, match play, and lessons. The whole works. They'll get more involved and help you that way. But, a lot of it's for the parents to find out which way to go. A coach is out there teaching privates all day or doing group, and they don't have time to sit down with every single parent and say, this is what you need to do. But I think a lot in picking a good coach is find somebody honest. A lot of parents, they don't want to hear it like it is. And parents either love me or they hate me because I tell them like it is. And a lot of parents don't want to hear it like it is. They want to hear, oh, my Susie is so great, she's going to be the next biggest champion. Well, yes, she might be if you did this, this, and this, but you've got to be willing to do it and be firm with them. And, they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear how great their child is instead of what they need to do to get better to make their child great.
Right. And so is it the coach's job to come up with a tournament schedule for the child, or is that something that we parents need to get good at?
Absolutely. It's the parent. Yes, absolutely. The parents should be doing that. They should be doing all the, finding the fitness and getting the right fitness. And then again, you go around and you ask where the top fitness coaches are in your area. And not just, you don't want a fitness coach, you want a tennis specific, because tennis is very, very hard, all the twisting and turning on the hips and the back, the lower back, and you want to make sure you have a coach that totally understands tennis drills, and you want more a footwork coach. You don't want to do any lifting weights, especially, until they've gone through puberty for a couple years. And so, yes, it's up to the parent to totally get involved, and in a lot of sports the parents have to be involved until the kids are old enough they can start doing their own schedule and say where they want to go. But yes, you can't rely on a coach to do those kind of things.
Okay. And what about expecting a coach to have working knowledge of good nutrition, incorporating mental training, those things? Or, again, is that something that the parent should be driving?
Well, a parent should ask the coach, and the coach, if it's a great coach, they will send you in the right directions. Who's great for mental, who's great for nutrition. And most coaches know good nutrition. They know what it takes. They know all the carbs and protein you need, and a lot of the players take some supplements, and a great coach will know, what needs to be taken, and they'll help you. Or if they can't help you, hopefully they won't be a salesman that tells you anything and everything. They just want to tell you, and they'll tell you where to go to get the help you need. And to me, that's a great coach that sends you elsewhere for advice if they can't help you.
And along those same lines, what about choosing proper equipment? Is that something we should rely on a coach to do, or is that, again, following the parent?
Absolutely not. I have to tell you a funny story I read online a couple of days ago. Is this coach had told a boy and you might have read it, that he needed size 11 shoe, and he really wore a 9. And so another coach says to the dad, why is he flopping around in those big shoes? He can't move. He said, well, the coach told us he needed bigger shoes, 2 sizes bigger, to learn to move his feet more.
Yeah, I did see that.
I mean, I would leave that coach so fast. You're going to get a broken ankle or a sprained ankle or mess up your leg or knees or hips. You can't go out with shoes 2 sizes bigger. Maybe I laughed because I said maybe he had some shoes he wanted to get rid of and told the guy he needed them. But, no, equipment, you can go to a good pro shop. You can read about it online. You can ask the top players. Ask the parents of the top players, how did you pick that line? And I don't know if many viewers know, but most of the rackets are not with the players, are not what they're playing with. They're painted so that they can sell the racket they want to sell, because a lot of players don't change. They'll stay with the pro players, they'll stay with the same racket like 10 years, and they don't make those rackets anymore. So they'll make a whole bunch up for the player, and then they'll paint it so it looks like a racket that's in their line currently. So you really have to be careful. Don't just pick a racket because a player's playing with that racket. Pick a racket that another junior's playing with, or to try out and demo. And you must demo many rackets. And if you think you like the racket, try it for a week or two and make sure that's really what you like before you go buy them.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's going to give you a different opinion on what racket you like, or they would like you to play with, depending what they play with. Or maybe they're selling for a company and they're, they get a profit off the rackets and string they're selling for that company. So you have to be careful. You've got to go and, ask several different places that demo different kind of rackets, different companies, and try them all. And now it shouldn't be by who plays with what. It should be by what feels good in your hand and if you're hitting better with that racket.
I know your girls didn't go the traditional route because they all turned pro at very young ages. But should a coach be able to help with college recruiting?
Oh, absolutely. I help many of my friends with college recruiting now on my own. They'll call me, and I know many, many coaches around the country, or I'll give them references, because I found so many of my friends, they were picking colleges for the college, which is okay if you want to be like a doctor or lawyer. But some of them wanted to go pro after college. Well, to me, then you should pick the college for the coach that's going to develop you and take you to the next level. So after college, you can go pro or have a chance to go pro. At least you can take a year or two and go out on the tour and see if you can make it. But you want to be developed those 4 years from your college coach to get to that next level, if that's your goal when you get out of college.
But there's so much movement among the college coaches, right? I mean, so you can pick a school for a coach, and then, you know, a year in, that coach is moving to another program. Then what do you do?
Well, that's true. I'm not sure how that works to be able to make a move yourself if a coach comes in and you don't care. But, I mean, there's so many good choices for the girls. You know, I follow the boys kind of where they end up going, but I'm really into a lot of the girl coaches and friends with them. And like right now, Mike Sale just became a co-coach with his wife at LSU. I mean, what a place for a girl to go next year. I mean, what an opportunity if they want to go to college and turn pro. He's one of the best coaches around. And then Rance Brown out at UCLA, and Maria Smith just got a full ride at Berkeley. Amanda Augustus used to play in Los Angeles, a good friend of my oldest daughter's, and they grew up together in Southern California, and she's a coach at Berkeley now. That coach was there 29 years. So I think a lot of the top colleges, the coaches stay because they get all the top players, and they're not going to leave that job when they have a great school and great players. But it does take them a few years to get there. The colleges that aren't as big, then the coaches are moving a lot because they're not happy and they're not winning, and then the college wants them to win and they're not winning because they don't have the proper players. So maybe that coach isn't a top coach to take the player pro after they're done, or maybe they're not into recruiting the way you would want. So there's so many things, but I help a lot of my friends. I refer them to colleges. I refer them to people that know who's looking for a coach if I don't know who is.
So, I mean, your feeling is that the junior coach should be helping out with that process.
If they're a top coach, they know the top players. They work with top players. They work with top players' coaches. And, yes, they know what's available out there, where the other players are going, where they're trying to get in. And the coach should be aware of that if they're coaching that level of player. Now, the coach you get for a little 8 and under is usually 99% not going to be the same coach that's trying to coach you in high school and get you into a college. That's usually, a totally different level coach. So that coach at that level, working with a lot of high school players, should be aware. I mean, even where my girls train, several different places they go to play matches and hit, there's college coaches coming all the time, and I talk to them from all over the country, just seeing the top players play that are at those academies, and the parents go up and talk to them, and they'll talk to anybody. I know there's some limits on age eligibility and things like that they can talk to, but the parents, they'll sit and answer all the questions to the parents or have little meetings, and the coaches should tell you, this coach is coming from this college. If you want to be here, this is the time they'll be here. And you go and learn. That may be a girls' college, or you may have a daughter and it's a boys' college, but go learn. You can learn so much from listening to different coaches tell you how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I learned, and still made lots of errors along the way. But I've been going to USTA parent player meetings for 20 years, and everybody goes, "Oh, you're sitting through the same meeting. Isn't that boring?" Well, I'm not going to say I'm too good to go sit in a meeting with my 14-year-old because I've been doing it for 20 years. I go in, and honestly, I never leave a meeting without learning one thing new. At least one thing new I pick up and learn over all these years. So I go into it with an open mind. I help in the discussions, and I go into an open mind with what can I learn new. Mm-hmm. And that's how you kind of have to, you have to be open-minded and go in, and you never know everything. After all these years I've done it, there's things to learn out there. Well, and things change, right? I mean, I'm sure things look a lot different now with your 14-year-old than they did with your 29-year-old.
Oh, the game is totally, totally different now. Just, totally different. The girls are more, first or second strike down the line, and they used to be more cross-court, and wait for the opportunity. Now, the more you wait for the opportunity, the other girl's taking the opportunity away from you. So the game's totally changed with the heavier balls and stronger rackets, and it's not the same game anymore, but it makes it interesting. If it was the same, it might be kind of boring.
That is true. That is true. Well, we're coming down to our last few minutes, so I want to just kind of give you the opportunity to say what you feel tennis parents need to hear. And be blunt, be honest, because I know that's one of your strengths is that you don't sugarcoat things. And that's one of the reasons that I love talking with you, because I know you're not going to BS me. You're going to give it to me straight. So give it to us all really straight.
Well, you just need to go out and interview coaches. It's like a business. Take it as an interview, a job interview for your child. And your child is a corporation. And make that child your corporation and put everything you can, whether it's self-labor or money, into that corporation and make it as big as you can make it. But treat it as a corporation. If you have 3 children playing, 2 children playing, 5 children playing, they're all an individual corporation, and take each one of those corporations as high as you can take it, to the highest level you can take it. And if you don't have coaches that will work with you and let you pick up balls and let you film and what they're doing and tell you what to do in between for practice to get better before the next lesson, then find somebody else. Do your interviews and build that corporation as big as you can make it. To me, I'll help anybody. I don't say, I'm not going to tell you who my daughter's coach is, or I'm not going to tell you what I do with them. To me, there's 100 spots in the world. Let's have 100 Americans. There's room for all of us, so let's go get them and let's have the most Americans ever in the top 100, boys and girls. And let's run all those foreigners out of the American colleges and have all Americans up there playing.
See, this is what I'm talking about. You don't sugarcoat stuff. You say it like it is. I love it.
No, it all falls down to the parent and not the coach. What is the parent doing? Is the parent firing the coach? Is the parent telling the child this is the way it has to be? I mean, you have to make it a corporation and do your job to run the corporation. Whether you have your own corporation for yourself and your family or not, you still have to run each player as a corporation and a business and take it as high as you can take them. If it fails or doesn't make it to the top, maybe you didn't know what was going on. It's still the responsibility of the parent to get them to the top.
Got it. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you so much for being so honest with us and sharing your experiences and helping us all do a better job out there as tennis parents. And I wish your girls all the best. I cannot wait for Nicole to finish her medical training and get to work in the tennis field, helping keep our athletes healthy and safe out there. I know that's one of her goals, and watching your younger girls out there, they're doing so well, and I know you're so proud of all of them. So congratulations, Mom.
Thank you. It's a lot of hard work, but you know what? It pays off in the end, and it's well worth every ounce of effort.
Well, thank you, and have a great week, Gail. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on. I hope I helped a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. To my listeners, thank you all for tuning in this week. We have just an unbelievable lineup of guests coming on the Parenting Aces radio show, so I hope you'll keep tuning in and sharing the show with your fellow tennis parents out there. I know that I haven't been writing as much on ParentingAces.com, and I apologize for that. It's been a crazy transition to our empty nest since my son has left for college. He's off to a great start and is loving life on the West Coast. So at some point I will get to the place where I can sit down and share all of that in writing. But in the meantime, I do hope you're following us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I have been posting some really good articles. There's a lot going on in the junior tennis world right now with tournaments going on around the world. There's a lot going on in college tennis with the fall football season and the tournaments there. We just finished the All-American tournament. Yesterday, actually, was the men's final. So congratulations to all those college players who were there and had a great run. And to my listeners, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week on the courts. And if you have any questions or need to talk about anything going on with your junior player, I hope you'll reach out to me. All my contact information is on ParentingAces.com, and I am here for you as a parent who has gone through the process. So I look forward to hearing from you all. It is gorgeous here in Atlanta, so I'm hoping to hit the courts a little bit this week myself, and I look forward to seeing all of you out there as well. Have a great week, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.